Welcome to the first ever Ask Ange. It's our new series of answering your questions about keto or low carb or any of those kind of things. You can hashtag Ask Ange on the Advantage Meals page on Facebook or comment below and hashtag Ask Ange, and we will do our best to get your questions answered and get it out there, get it taken care of. So we're so excited. So the first question is a very common one for people who are just starting a ketogenic diet. How long does it take to get into ketosis? And this makes sense. You're getting started on the journey. You want to know what to expect. You want to know what's going on. And so what we're going to do is we're going to recap a little bit of the basics and then talk about some different scenarios of getting into ketosis. So the basics, our human body can run on two major fuel sources. There's some other minor ones as well, but the two major fuel sources that the body can use are glucose and fatty acids. Glucose comes from the carbohydrates in our diet or the glycogen that is the storage form of glucose that we have in our liver and in our muscles. We can store a small amount of glycogen that way. Fatty acids either come from the fat in our diet or the fat that we store on our body. And so obviously for weight loss, we want to get to a place where we are burning the fat that is stored on our body. However, your body will always burn glucose first whenever it's present in your bloodstream. And this is because too much glucose in your bloodstream is extremely dangerous. So this is a very tightly regulated system, and your body will always burn that glucose first. But in the absence of glucose in the bloodstream, your body will start to burn fatty acids. And again, those either come from your diet or what's stored on your body. Also, when we burn fatty acids, our body produces ketones. And our brain can either run on glucose or ketones. And so in the absence of glucose, your body is burning fatty acids for fuel. You also produce ketones, which your brain can run on. And we evolved this system, this alternative fuel system, as a species in order to deal with times of food scarcity, when the hunt didn't go well, or seasonal variations, or any time that food was scarce. We needed a way to thrive if there wasn't food readily available. So we have all of this fat that we store on our bodies for just such an occasion. Even the leanest person among us stores somewhere around 100,000 calories worth of fat on our bodies. So we can thrive even when food isn't constantly coming in. So the state of ketosis is when our body is burning fatty acids and producing ketones. Then we're in ketosis. We adapted to create this alternative fuel source so that we could thrive. And so ketosis, really what it does is it mimics the fasted state. And this is where the ketogenic diet comes in. If we eat a ketogenic diet, we create that state of ketosis. We are mimicking the fasted state. And then there are a myriad of benefits in our bodies, and chief among them for most people is weight loss. So the way to get into ketosis is to deprive your body of glucose so that you switch over to burning fatty acids and producing ketones, and you get into ketosis. The easiest and fastest way to do that is to fast, is to go without food. Our body has about 2 days worth of glycogen stored in our liver and our muscles. So if there's no glucose coming in from carbohydrates in our body, we will burn that glycogen storage that's in our liver and in our muscles, and it takes about 2 days to get through it, and then your body switches over to burning fatty acids and producing ketones. So if you fast for 2 days, an average healthy person is going to get through that glycogen and going to be in ketosis. So if you go that way, most people who are healthy are going to take about 2 days. If that's not your thing, you don't want to go without food for 2 days, I get that. The other thing that you can do is follow a very strict ketogenic diet protocol. And this means lowering your carbohydrate intake to under 20 net grams of carbs. Net carbs are total carbs minus the fiber, because our bodies can't process the fiber. So we just count the rest. So carbs minus fiber is net carbs. You want to keep those under 20 grams. You want to eat a high fat diet so that you're telling your body that fat is what you want to use for fuel, and that you're not starving, that it's okay to burn off your body stores so it can get started on that fast and you can start losing weight. You also want to eat a moderate protein level, some protein with every meal, but not a ton. Because if you eat too much protein, that can actually be converted to carbohydrate in our body. So if you follow this protocol, most people are going to take between 3 and 7 days to get into ketosis, because you will more gradually deprive your body of the glucose, and you'll get into ketosis there within about 3 to 7 days. For some people, the process does take longer. Anybody with health issues, metabolic disorders, or who has been extremely reliant on a high carbohydrate diet for a long time, it takes time to switch over to those fat burning mechanisms, to those ketone producing mechanisms, all of those things. It's a learning process for our bodies. So if it takes longer, be patient. Give yourself time. Understand that it's a process and that you will get there. So how do you know when you're in ketosis? There are several ways to tell. The easiest and most affordable, especially when you're first starting a ketogenic diet, the easiest way is to use urine strips. And they come in a little jar. You can buy them online. We'll put a link in the description below. Most pharmacies carry them as well. You get the strips, you pee on them, and then they change color. And you look at that color and you compare it. There's a little chart on the jar, and you can compare it, and it will show you your level of ketones. The reason why there are ketones in your urine, as your body is producing ketones, if there's any extra that it doesn't use, they are excreted. And one of the ways that they are excreted is in our urine. So you can measure that amount. I will say one thing. A lot of people see those colors on the jar and they want to get to that darkest color. They want to get to that biggest level of ketones. They think that is the goal. And that's actually not true. Each individual body is very different in how it produces ketones, how it uses ketones, how it excretes ketones. And there's not a magic number. There's not something like a target that you're shooting for that everybody needs to get to. As long as you are producing ketones and you see some color on that strip, you're in ketosis and you're good to go. One of the other ways that our body excretes excess ketones that it's not using is through our breath. And a lot of people, when they are first starting keto, notice bad breath as one of the symptoms. That actually is telling you that you're producing ketones, so it's a good thing. It actually also goes away pretty quickly, because as your body gets more efficient at using those ketones, then you don't excrete as much through your breath. When you're just getting started, though, that is one way to measure whether you're in ketosis, and they sell breath meters. It is more expensive, and so you have to buy the device and all of those kind of things. And because it's a little less accurate and you don't excrete as much through your breath as you continue on your journey, we don't suggest using a breath meter just because of the expense and that kind of thing. There is also a blood testing meter that you can use. This is the most accurate way to test. And there's a meter, and you prick your finger and you put the blood on the strip, and it measures it in the meter, and it tells you how many ketones are in your blood. This is the most accurate. It's also more expensive. You have to buy the meter, and then you have to buy the strips. The strips are obviously a one-time use, and they can be $1 a piece, all the way up to $10 a piece for some devices. So it gets pricey if you're checking all the time, but it is a very accurate way to measure. And if you're testing various things, sometimes that's a nice thing to have. We'll put a link in the notes below about the blood testing meter that we use as well. But you don't actually have to test your ketones to know if you're in ketosis, especially as you go along and you become accustomed to keto lifestyle and what it feels like to be in ketosis. You'll notice the difference. A lot of people describe mental clarity, that they just feel like they can think better, they can focus better, they're clearer. There's this brain fog when you're on a high carbohydrate diet that goes away when you're on keto and you feel better. And it's kind of hard to describe, but once you feel it, you know what that feels like. So you know you're in ketosis. Also, energy levels. It's similar. Once you feel the difference in the energy level, you'll know you're in ketosis because you have more energy, but it's not this crazy, I'm just bouncing off the walls, I've got tons of energy. It's more of a steady, sustained energy throughout the day that you feel good. You don't have these big rises and falls as you're on the insulin and carb roller coaster. You don't have those anymore. You're just steady and you feel good. A lot of people report sleeping better when they're in keto. Those kind of things, you can look for those and you'll know when you're in ketosis as you get used to it. So I also get, along with this question, a lot of people know if there's anything that they can buy or take or eat or do in order to get into ketosis faster. There are some people that there are some products and some supplements that you can buy, and some people use those in order to help increase the ketone production and get into ketosis faster. I'm not a big fan of those. I think that keto is a natural process. Being in ketosis is a natural adaptation for our bodies, and it should be simple. It's not a complicated thing. Our bodies know how to do it if we give it the right things. And so I'm not a big fan of the supplements and that kind of thing, although they are out there. If you want to add something, though, you can eat more coconut. Coconut contains medium chain triglycerides, which is just a name for a specific type of fatty acids, and the chemical structure of them, the shape of them, is more easily processed in our bodies, and they lead to greater ketone production faster. And so if you include more coconut oil, those kind of things, you're going to get more medium chain triglycerides, and that will amp up ketone production. You can also get MCT oil and include that. It's pretty tasteless, so you can just drizzle it on your food. Some people like to make the keto coffee that has MCT oil blended into it. There's lots of ways to incorporate that into your diet, and that will help amp up ketone production, which will then usually help you get into ketosis faster. The other thing that you might consider including in your routine is intermittent fasting. As ketosis mimics the fasted state in the body, so if we add more fasting time into our regular routine, then our body is naturally going to amp up ketone production. And there's lots of ways to do intermittent fasting. You can do some every day, you can do some every other day, you can do it once a week. You really just need to kind of play around and figure out what feels good for you, what works for your body, if it does. It doesn't work for everybody. But if you want, one of the ways that we suggest that people start is to eat their evening meal, their last meal of the day, and then don't eat again before you go to bed. So there you're probably going to have 2 or 3 hours in a fasted state before you go to bed. You're going to have all the time that you're sleeping. By the time you get up in the morning, you're going to be pretty close to 12 hours fasted already. And then if you can just stretch that window until lunch, you're going to have somewhere between 14 to 16 hours in a fasted state, and that is really going to amp up ketone production and help you get into ketosis faster. So that is our first Ask Ange. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you hashtag Ask Ange on the Advantage Meals page on Facebook or in the comments below if you have questions. Subscribe to our channel, follow Advantage Meals on Facebook, and we'll look forward to talking with you soon.